Some of you have asked me about the death penalty. Well, it's time to talk about it. Stay tuned. You're watching Timeless Talks, timeless subjects, information for life. To discuss the subject of the death penalty, we need to focus first of all on the concept of what a penalty is. Penalties, as you know, are punishments. Punishment for violating a set known law. In our country, men write laws, but problem is that men don't write perfect laws. And since the laws are not perfect, it can cause disagreement between people. Those disagreements sometimes can become heated, shall we say? Frustrations with each other's opinions, and that can even boil over to violence. When we talk about the death penalty, we need to do something that'll keep you and I from becoming frustrated with each other and angry, and you turning off the video. We need to do something else. So here's what I'm going to suggest to us today. Let's take whatever opinion or emotional feelings you have about it, and I'm going to do the same thing. Let's set it up there on the shelf, okay? It'll be there when we get through. We can come back to it if we want, but let's set that aside, and instead of us arguing between what we think about it, why don't we just go talk with God about it and let Him tell us what He thinks about the death penalty? God did make a lot of good laws for the Jewish people, and it was intended for their benefit. Each law that God gave them had a penalty or instructions attached. Not all of God's laws to those people were death penalty laws. Some were there for the sake of restitution, to make sure that if someone hurt some piece of property you had, here's the recourse. He also established things like, we would call them sanctuary cities, for people who accidentally committed crimes like accidental manslaughter. The people could run to those cities and stay in those cities and be safe for their lifetime as long as they stayed in the town. But because we're talking about the death penalty, we need to focus on the laws that would require death as a penalty. Just before God installed the Ten Commandments, He gave one of those death penalties. It is recorded for us in Exodus chapter 19, verses 12 through 13. And you shall set limits for the people all around, saying, take care not to go up into the mountain or touch the edge of it. Whosoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall be stoned or shot, whether beast or man. He shall not live. When the trumpet sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain. Could you see the law in that case? And could you see the penalty for violating that law? Let's also read from Exodus chapter 21, verses 14 through 17 has a series of these death penalty type laws that we need to examine. In Exodus 21, verse 14, it says, but if a man willfully attacks another to kill him by cunning, you shall take him from my altar that he may die. What was the law? What was the penalty? Verse 15 has another example. It says, whoever strikes his father or his mother shall be put to death. The law said that you are not to strike your father or your mother. And what was the penalty if you did? You were to be executed. Verse 16 in the same chapter says, whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him, shall be put to death. What was the law of human trafficking? And what was the penalty? That's kind of gets scary. Not only was the person who did the stealing and the selling to be executed, but the man who bought them. Both were to be executed. What does verse 17 tell us? Whoever curses his father or mother shall be put to death. Was cursing your father and mother an acceptable practice? Or was it a capital offense? And what was the penalty for the violator? Can you imagine what would happen in America if that was enforced to that degree? And here's further. Even if you had an animal that had been known for attacking and harming people, if you didn't take care of that appropriately, you could be penalized. It tells us in Exodus 21 verse 29, but if an ox has been accustomed to gore in the past, and its owner has been warned, but has not kept it in, and it kills a man or woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner shall be put to death. If you didn't control your ox that had been hurting people by goring them, you were in danger of the death penalty. So it doesn't take us long to see what God thought about the death penalty. He thought it was something that was absolutely necessary for those Jewish people. It is even told to us in Leviticus 27 verse 29 that if someone was convicted, they could not be ransomed. It says, no one devoted who is to be devoted for destruction from mankind shall be ransomed. He shall surely be put to death. Why was it that God thought it so necessary? Well, to find that answer, we just need to read the Bible some more. In Deuteronomy chapter 17 and verse 12, it says, the man who acts presumptuously by not obeying the priest who stands to minister there before the Lord your God, or the judge, that man shall die. So you shall purge the evil from Israel. Acting inappropriately before the priest by not obeying him or not obeying the judge, that was evil. That causes problems. God wanted it purged from his country. In Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 22, it says, if a man is found lying with the wife of another man, both of them shall die, the man who lay with the woman and the woman. So you shall purge the evil from Israel. Did you notice that the phrases were almost the same? There's another scripture we need to examine, but this time let's kind of role play ourselves into that role and see what it would feel like. The role is found in Deuteronomy 17, beginning in verses 1 through 7. And in the first verses of this, it tells us about if you and a friend were visiting, and you learned that a mutual friend, a third friend of yours, had worshipped an idol. That was a criminal offense. But if you and your buddy heard about it, the two of you were to go do the investigating to find out whether or not this is a truth, whether or not he really was. And in the course of the investigation, both of you may find it out to be true. You may even find another person or two who agrees with you and knows it to be true. In verse 5 of Deuteronomy 17, it says, then you shall bring out to your gates that man or woman who has done this evil thing, and you shall stone that man or woman to death with stones. On the evidence of 2 witnesses or of 3 witnesses, the one who is to die shall be put to death. A person shall not be put to death on the evidence of 1 witness. The hand of the witnesses. Friends, that might be you and your friend. The hand of the witnesses shall be first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. You can see from all these passages that they speak about evil being purged from the Israelites. And in this particular case, you and your friend would have been the first of the executioners before everybody else did. God saw this as your way of contributing to keep the nation pure and clean. You see, the execution of a violator of one of these huge laws was God's way of purging the people, getting all of that out, and it being so public a thing that the people themselves stoned them, that they all knew the penalty and they all participated in it. God wanted to keep this nation pure and clean. But there's a second reason that God wanted the death penalty, and it's found in Ecclesiastes chapter 8 at verse 11. Because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily, the heart of the children of man is fully set to do evil. You know, God knows that man wants to do wrong. And if we are not punished quickly, we will continue to sin. See, the people being punished think that they're getting away with it if it doesn't come speedily. And they think they're getting away with wrongdoing, and what's going to happen? More wrongdoing. So, from all this, you can see what God thinks about the death penalty. Now, at this point, you got the opportunity to take your old ideas and pull them down and think about them, but I want to add one more thought before you reach up there. Have you ever considered that God may have been using the death penalty to save your soul? He used the death penalty to sacrifice his own son. God knew what you and I have been told in the Bible, that the Jewish leaders around Jesus wanted to kill him. They want him out of the way. So on the night in which he was betrayed, he was arrested. He was carried before a illegal court because it met at night. And in that kangaroo court, they concluded that Jesus had committed blaspheming. That was a capital offense, and they invoked it immediately. Did you notice something? God didn't stop them. He didn't get in the way because it was a death penalty. As a matter of fact, God had used that because he knew that would happen, and he planned his scheme of redeeming mankind around the fact that those people wanted to invoke his own death penalty. God also knew the name of the place where Jesus was going to be executed, and that figures in too. The name of the place, do you remember it? It was Golgotha, meaning the place of the skull. Golgotha was to the Roman army and to the Jews around Jerusalem the same thing that we would consider as a wall when you think of about a firing squad, or the guillotine in the French Revolution, or the hangman's noose at Fort Smith's gallows where hanging Judge Roy Parker convicted so many. It's like the electric chair or the stretcher in the prison that uses lethal injection. All of them were nothing more than forms of execution when laws are broken that demanded a death penalty. You see, God not only believes in a death penalty, but used it for your good. We're all, you and I both, are all under the penalty of sin because we do commit sin. Romans 3:23 and Romans 6:23. We all, you and I both, are under the death penalty. We are expected to die because we have violated the commands of God. But the good news is that you have a chance to live because God took this sinful man over here, namely me or you, and he took his sinless son, and he had the sinless son take the place of you and I, and he killed him by the death penalty so that you and I would have a chance to live forever with him, to be out from under that death penalty. Yes, God used that death penalty for your good and mine. God believes in the death penalty, though, even in eternity, because he has set it up so that anyone who does not follow his basic teachings of baptism and confession and repentance and living correctly after baptism, if they don't do those things, God has reserved a place for them. They're going to have a second death. They're going to spend eternity away from his presence. The death penalty. Now you know about it. Do you want to take it down off the shelf and resume it what you had? Or will you at least consider God's viewpoint on the death penalty? It would be for your good. Thank you for considering these things. We love you. And until next time, goodbye for now.